Good evening, everybody. Hey, it's Cutler here on the Let's Talk to Cutler broadcast. It's already January 4th. Happy New Year to everybody. I hope your year is already off to a wonderful start. Do me a favor. Let me just say this to you. If you're just passing by my channel for the very first time, this channel is about motivation. It's about inspiration. It's about challenging us to be a little bit better than we were today. So the challenge is, how can I show up better tomorrow than I did today? What tools can I grab from this conversation that empowers me for tomorrow? Well, you all, we are going to embark on a new conversation. We're going to talk from this book right here, When I Am Overwhelmed: How to Handle Life at Its Most Intense Moments. And I'm calling our conversation tonight, Stop Getting in the Pool When You Don't Know How to Swim. Don't get in the water when you don't know how to swim. I want to talk about it from the perspective of handling being overwhelmed. Hey, if you don't have this book, you can always run on over to Amazon.com and pick it up at Amazon.com. It's my sixth book. Go on over there and get it. I want to, again, Happy New Year to everybody. Happy 2020. Go ahead and put that in the comments. But I want to ask you, I want to ask you if you have the book. So I want to find out who has the book. So you all just start chatting with me and letting me know who has the book. And I want to come right back. I want to give you a chance to just get yourself together, get your minds together, because we're shifting from talking about billboards to talking about really basics, how to handle life at its most intense moments. How many of y'all know that life can be intense? Life can sometimes make you stop and breathe. Sometimes it knocks the wind, knocks the breath out of you. Sometimes it takes your breath away. I want to talk about that because this book right here is how we really got together. I'll tell you all that as soon as I come back. Do me a favor. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Can you all tell I'm excited about this? Go ahead and subscribe. And once you subscribe, do a thumbs up. Not a thumbs up, but check the notification bell, because it lets you know when I've gone live, whenever I've uploaded new content. Go ahead and do that. For people who are really dealing with real life issues, you all, I don't purport to be a professional counselor or any of that, but what I do know is that I know how to create a space where we can all chat, a space that's safe for us to exchange ideas and conversations. And that's what we're doing. And we're still going to do that within these 1,800 seconds. People who got real life issues, real life problems, real life situations, tell them, listen, we all have been overwhelmed. Some of us are overwhelmed right now. And go and get them, go and get them and bring them to the conversation, y'all, and tell them, come on, let's talk to Cutler. Stop playing with me. I'll be right back. Let's talk to Cutler.
One more thing, like, subscribe and share. Come on, let's talk to Cutler.
All right, I'm back, and we're going to talk about when I am overwhelmed. When I am overwhelmed. I want to say thank you to the folk who just jumped into the chat with me first and start chatting it up. Sonia Bailey says, good evening. K Sharp says, good evening and Happy New Year. Annie Cutler says, let's ride. So thank you all again so much. So let me know how many of you all have the book. Let me know if you have the book. And I am going to, while I'm chit-chatting, I'm making sure I'm looking at the conversation. I'm seeing the chat, and I want to make sure that if I see, if I see trolls or people just dropping craziness in the conversations, then you all know what I'm going to do. I'm going to block them. I'm going to kick them out. You don't get to come here and just start putting spam and stuff in the conversation. No, not with us. We're not going to do it. But again, let me see. Let's see. I'm taking a poll and seeing who has the book. All right, K Sharp, I got my book. Rosella, I have that book. T Cutler, I have mine, one of my favorites. All right, you all let me know if you have the book, right? I need to know if you have the book, because the book is dynamic. It's really interactive. Linda Martin says, good evening, and have my autographed copy. Yes, you do. You have an autographed copy. But let me just sort of give you a little bit about this book, just so that you all know what was going on with this book. This was my This was book number 6. And as such, this book came out, I think it was August of 2017, just so that to give you all a story, the background about how things work, you all. Um, this book was published in August 2017, and there was a big launching. We had a big launching for this particular book, and it looked to be very promising. And there were speaking engagements. I had speaking engagements and appearances scheduled across the country, and they were coming in as soon as this book was released in August of 2017. September of 2017, I sustained a life-changing injury. Um, Life-changing to the point that it necessitated me having to get metal rods, having to get ankle reconstructed and all of that. Consequently, many of my tour dates and things were canceled. And I was thinking, how in the world, how in the world could I have gotten the inspiration? And I truly believe that I was inspired to write this. How could I have gotten the inspiration to write this book, have tour dates and signing dates set up, then sustain an injury, and all of it seemingly go down the drain? My mind was blown. I was shocked. I was disappointed. I was hurt. I was appalled. I was overwhelmed. Because I knew that I had the inspiration to write this book. You all do a thumbs up on the conversation, because I'm just sharing my moment of transparency, my truth about this book. I knew I was inspired to write it because it was book number 6. I had signing dates, appearances, and all of those things set, sustained the injury, and things were canceled at the drop of a dime, just like that. And there I just heartbroken and disappointed. While I was in recovery and recuperation, I picked the book up and read it. It was okay. Didn't quite sound like my words, because they really spoke to me about dealing with an intense moment in my life. I'd never had a life-changing injury before, but those words really spoke to me. That was 2017. So I'm thinking I lost the ability to connect with a lot of people. The pandemic came, and I was just clowning around my house. And I created this picture, like with four different pictures. I was in the picture 4 times. So I do a lot of playing with creative photography and all of that sort of stuff, and photoshopping and all of that. So I made this picture with me sitting around the house in pajamas 4 times. And it looked like I was having a book club meeting, and I posted it, and someone said, "Why don't you do that while we are in this pandemic?" And I thought, okay, I'll do it. I'll see. And a few people signed on to that thought, that notion. And you all, because of that, we are where we are today. This book ushered us into the pandemic and helped many of us. I was on a different platform, and it helped many of us. I don't think all of those things were even were recorded and or broadcast, but it helped many of us to get through the pandemic. So for those of you who have the book, let me just go ahead and say thank you. Those who don't have the book, run on over to Amazon.com and get it, or www.gbcutler and get it. This book, when I am overwhelmed, how to handle life at its most intense moments. Let me just jump into this conversation, because I talked about not going into the pool when you don't know how to swim. Because what happens, you all, when we hear the word overwhelmed, I want to get right into this. When we hear this word overwhelmed, it has the potential to conjure up all kinds of, and y'all can follow along. I'm just really going through the preface, the introduction of the book right now. It has the potential to conjure up all kinds of images, positive and negative. When we hear, what do you all think when you hear the word overwhelmed? Sometimes it brings to thought these magical moments, blissful moments about, oh, I'm overwhelmed because there's this whole stuff, these things that I wish that could just, these magical moments that could go on forever whenever I'm overwhelmed by receiving love and cars and gifts and money and all those kinds of things. That's a wonderful moment, and we can be overwhelmed with positivity. But conversely, thank you, thank you. So you all let me know when you hear the word overwhelmed, tell me what comes to mind. Tracy says, too much to deal with. And Tracy, you're right. Sometimes that could be from the perspective of positive stuff, like the loves, the gifts, the cards, all of that stuff can just be too much in a moment to deal with. What else comes to mind when you all hear about being overwhelmed? And it doesn't have to just be a good thing, but it can be bad stuff as well. The perspective that comes to mind from not just being overwhelmed with love and gifts and cards and those things. What about when you feel defeated? And you feel engulfed and you feel overtaken and you feel crushed, that is overwhelming as well. And when people feel overwhelmed from negativity and negative things, as in the preface, it says it causes people to believe that death is a better option than life. That's what happens when we're dealing with negative or negativity that overwhelms us. T. Cutler says she feels that it's way too many things going on at one time. Yes, whether good or bad, that's what overwhelmed is about. Too much to deal with, way too many things going on at one time. Thank you all. Thank you for that feedback. Many of us are overwhelmed. Many of us, even now, as we're dealing with this pandemic again, we came through the pandemic, we came through the Delta variant. Now we're dealing with the Omicron variant. While we were going through those things, you may recall in the past couple of years, we've dealt with the turnover in a presidential administration. We've dealt with social injustice. We've dealt with racial conflict. We've dealt with we've dealt with all of these things. And some of us, if we can be honest, we're at the point of saying, whoa, pump your brakes, stop. Life, what is going on? This is, as Tracy and T. Cutler said, too much to deal with, way too many things going on at one time. Somebody hold it, stop the ride. I want to get off. Can you all imagine how many people over the past couple of years from dealing with this stuff, they've gotten to the point where they believe that death is a better option than life. So I don't take suicide, I don't take it lightly. When people telling me they're having suicidal thoughts and tendencies, I don't take it lightly, and neither should any of us. We should not take it lightly. Thank you. Because not only have we been dealing with political issues and religious issues and racial issues, we've been dealing with weather and natural disasters, tornadoes, fires, hurricanes, earthquakes. We've been dealing with all of that stuff. Recently, a snowstorm in the Northeast area where we had people stranded on the highways overnight. We can't take any of this stuff for granted. As I was writing in this preface, many of us have been overwhelmed. And I think what I'm going to do as we collectively present these thoughts and ideas together is just to share some of the direct reading. Listen to this, you all. Many of us have been overwhelmed. I've been overwhelmed more times than I care to remember. And I'm going to talk about that. I want to talk about that this evening, about how do people know when you're dealing with a situation? Do the people who are most familiar with you, do they know what your signal is when you are drowning? How do you communicate with people when you are overwhelmed? So let me ask this before I even start reading anything else, you all. Are you generally more comfortable with a crowd or by yourself? You all talk to me. I'm curious. Are you generally more comfortable with a crowd or by yourself? Are you generally more comfortable with the crowd or by yourself? Because if you are generally more comfortable with the crowd or people who are around you, do they know? Do they know how to read your body language? Do they know how to read your nonverbal communications? Do they know how to read when you are feeling overwhelmed and when you're feeling uncomfortable? And if you are more comfortable by yourself, do you have the wherewithal to reach out to people and let them know when you are suffering, when you are dealing with things, when you are feeling, as the young folks say, a certain kind of way? We're going to jump right into this conversation. So, but let's look at the platform. Let's look at the perspectives that we are handling and that we are addressing. If I'm tend to be by myself most of the time, then am I the kind of person who will let people know when I'm going through, when I'm dealing with an issue, when I'm handling something, when I'm feeling uncomfortable? Can I expect them to know? Well, not if I'm necessarily by myself. I can't expect them to know. I have to be able to reach out to them. I have to be able to communicate with them. So a part of handling life at its most intense moments when I'm by myself is to have the wherewithal to reach out to somebody else. And if I'm more comfortable when I'm with people, then I have to make sure that they understand how to read me, how to know what I'm saying, how to read the nonverbal communication. So I want you all to think about that. What is your method for communicating when you are drowning? Because we said sometimes the word overwhelmed, yes, it means a blissful, magical, wonderful feeling. But on the other hand, it means something dark and defeated and drowning and engulfed and overtaken and crushed. All right? Because this book, if no other book really pulls out the transparent moments of my life, this one does. And I put right in the preface that I have been overwhelmed more times than I care to remember. There are many things that overwhelm many people. Death can be overwhelming, whether tragic and sudden or after an extended illness. Death overwhelms me, you all. Crowds. I know you all may not necessarily think about it. You think, well, Cutler, you show up here every Tuesday and every Thursday, and you're talking to us, and you've told us that, you've told us that you teach and that you're in a classroom, and so many other people see me on different platforms and in other circles and spaces. And Cutler, how can crowds overwhelm you? Crowds overwhelm me, you all. Crowds overwhelm me. That if I don't necessarily have something specifically to do at a function, I won't go because crowds overwhelm me. And some of you all don't know, I'm 6'4.5", but I'm still overwhelmed by crowds because even though thank God I'm not any shorter than I am, because if I stepped into a crowd and I really couldn't see over it, I really would freak out. But crowds overwhelm me when I don't have something specifically to do there. Can you all see how see how the tension is building up? So you have to sometimes know what death overwhelms me. Crowds overwhelm me. Thank God I don't have to deal with them now, but financial hardships overwhelm me. I don't like being sick or in pain. When I sustained this injury, when I broke the bottom bone in your body, in your foot that sustains all of your weight, I broke that of all bones. It's not a bone that's broken very often. And not only did I break that, it's called the calcaneus. Not only did I break that, but the weight that I put on it when I fell was my ankle. My ankle sunk down into the joint. And they had to pull that bone back up, do this. I'm not going to freak you all out with what happened, but they had to do surgery, go in, do all this kind of stuff, cut, scrape, put in titanium rods, all that kind of stuff. And so recuperating from all of that kind of stuff, and that overwhelmed me. New opportunities, new surroundings, new relationships can be overwhelming. I tell people I don't like forced relationships. I don't like new relationships. I need to take things slowly, because when you throw things at me very quickly, like new opportunities, new surroundings, that's wonderful, but I have to take them slowly. When major moves are on the horizon for me, I have to plan them out, sometimes weeks, months, and years in advance. Because the shock of something new so quickly, it will cause me to just stop and freeze and look around. That's just me. You got to know your triggers. You have to know what overwhelms you, what makes you uncomfortable. That is why I titled our conversation tonight, "Don't Go in the Pool When You Can't Swim." Why are you going to go in the pool when you can't swim? Know the things that make you uncomfortable. Know the things that make you uncomfortable. Wow, I'm just still in the preface. Know the things that make you uncomfortable, and let's stop forging relationships with things and with people that have the potential to kill us. I just had an aha moment when I said, let's stop forging relationships with things and with people that have the potential to kill us. How many people get in a pool and don't know how to swim? How many people will walk along the shore of the water and they like getting their feet wet, but now all of a sudden you've built the rapport and a relationship. You've built the rapport and a relationship with the water when you can't swim. So now you're just walking on the shore because you like the way the water feels. I'm talking about what we do in life. You're walking along the shore, you're getting your feet wet because you like the way that the water feels, and you can't swim. And then the water lures you out to go out a little farther because you like the way it feels. You like the idea of not just getting my feet wet, but maybe just up to my ankles, maybe up to my knees. And the water lures you out. And before you know it, the water has lured you out when it's up to a point that's dangerous. And there you are enjoying a relationship with a thing that has the potential to take you under. That water is just it's just a metaphor for what we do in life. And so now we've built this relationship with this thing that has the potential to kill us, and we knew in the first place we couldn't swim. And we didn't have any business making a relationship with the water. You can't swim. Did I look at the pros and the cons and the potential of what could happen in this relationship? It's like looking at a pool. At least if I'm going to get into a pool and cannot swim, I'm not going to get into a pool where the water goes over my head, because I know what overwhelms me. So there's no way in the world, if I could not swim, that I would get in a pool that's 6 feet deep. I just wouldn't do it. And at least don't get in the pool and you don't have swimming gear and stuff. So I'm just talking about, before we even talk about how to handle the overwhelming situations, what are some of the things that we could possibly do when you know your triggers, when you know what has the potential to make you feel engulfed and drowned and crushed and all of that kind of stuff? You say, let me see, is this worth having a relationship with? Is he or she worth having a relationship with? Is this thing worth going after? Can I go after this thing without this thing potentially consuming me? K Sharp, you're right. We have to be observant. Got to be observant, right? So then, not only do situations, but people can be overwhelming. May I read the way it's put here in this book? People, yes, people can be overwhelming. Gossiping people, lying people, stealing people, betraying people, people whom you give your heart to, but then they break it. People whom you call family, but they mock you, scorn you, humiliate you, publicly degrade you, and let others talk about you like a dog behind your back. People whom you put your trust and confidence in, but they mishandle and disregard you. People whom you call friend, but they are self-serving, self-aggrandizing, and only in the friendship for what they can get. We know people. Stop having relationships with people that you know are potentially overwhelming. I don't have relationships with people who prove to me that they were nasty to other people, because guess what? A zebra doesn't change its stripes and a leopard doesn't lose its spots. Cutler, why on earth would you say that? It seems to me that you would give people the grace to be different. I give them the grace to be different, not just with me, though. You got the grace to be different in your own space. You got grace in your own space, but you don't have to be in my life for me. I don't have to prove that you've changed. I don't have to be the guinea pig to whom you prove that you've changed. Because if I saw you, if I saw you mistreat, if I saw you talk about, if I saw you backbite, if I saw you gossip about somebody else, y'all gonna hear a whole lot of country saying, because one of the things I say, a dog that will take a bone will carry a bone. Stop hanging around people. Some of us know people. and we still put ourselves in the water. We walk along the shore. Oh, they're not going to talk about me. They're not going to gossip about me. They're not going to stab me in the back. And you walk along the water, forging a relationship with the thing that has the potential to kill and destroy you and overwhelm you. Be observant. Thank you, Paula. When people show you who they are, believe them, according to Dr. Maya Angelou. That's right. So then, people, judgmental people, self-righteous people, people who don't care about hurting people, and let me say this to you. If people brag about what they do to other people, turn and run the other way. We talk about how to handle life at its most intense moments. In fact, what we're talking about tonight is how to avoid the intense moments. When you're dealing with you all, that's one of the things. Life and its people can be overwhelming. And how many of us would say, oh my God, if I only knew then what I know now? Both of my hands are up because I'm on my way to 60. And oh my God, if I only knew then what I know now. When I would start feeling overwhelmed, I'm telling you what I would do. I would get myself out of the water, go back and sit on the shore, even if I got to sit on the shore by myself. That's exactly what I would do. So if you like the crowd, sometimes people like the crowd, and so you stay in the water, and you know the water is overwhelming you. You know the tides and the currents are causing you to drift away from the shore, and now you start feeling overwhelmed, but you don't want to go back to the shore because you feel like if I got to go back to the shore, I got to go back to the shore, and I have to go there alone. Many people would rather deal with the consequences because if you're a people person, you like people around. That's why I asked the question, because many times you're in a comfortable space with the people and you'd rather deal with the consequences and suffer feeling overwhelmed because at least I have people around rather than going to the shore and sitting in the shore by myself, because I'd rather deal with the consequences. At least I got people around, rather than having to go to the shore and risk suffering it out by myself. At least if I go to the shore, I'm safe. Go to the shore, I'm safe. So know your threshold. Yes, I'll get into the rest of the book. I promise you I will. Listen, we got weeks together. I'll get into the rest, but know your threshold. Know how tall you are. Know what you can stand up in. That's what I'm talking about. So if feeling overwhelmed is like feeling defeated and engulfed and like stuff is going to take you under, know your threshold. Know how tall you are. Know how you can stand up. Go back to the shore and sit there if you've got to sit there by yourself. I'd rather sit there by myself because at least I'm safe, rather than suffering among people who are not even watching me. I'm putting up the 2 fingers and the 5 fingers telling people I'm drowning, but the crowd is so busy doing what the crowd does. No. Go back to the shore. Know your threshold. Know how far out in the waves you can go. I'm empowering us. I hope I'm empowering us before we even get there. Understand, listen, I know out here in the crowd right now, I'm having a good time. I know I'm a little more comfortable here, but I'd rather save myself for sure on the shore. Let me tell you all how that thing just encouraged me. I'd rather save myself for sure on the shore by myself than to suffer among a crowd who's not even paying me any attention. Thereby, I'm being overwhelmed. Know your threshold, you all. It's like getting in a pool. Know your threshold. So I want to ask you this. I want to ask you this because when you know your threshold at whatever stage you are in life now, you know how tall you are. You know how deep of water you can stand up in. But we know that we're going to run into challenging situations. We know that we're going to run into potentially overwhelming situations. What would you what would you say to your younger self if you can go back and have a conversation? What would you say to your younger self about the challenges and the situations that your younger self will eventually encounter? What are you going to say to your younger self? That's the question. That's the question on the floor tonight. Yeah, we will potentially have more overwhelming situations. And as we're talking about how to handle them, have we learned any lessons? What would you say to your younger self about the lessons, about the challenges that your younger self will eventually endure? I often say, wow, I wish I could have told the 13-year-old me this. I wish I could have told the 16-year-old me that. I wish I could have told the 27-year-old me this. And in doing so, it doesn't mean that we're living with regrets. It means that we've recognized the lessons. When you can go back and talk to your younger self, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're living with regret. It means that, wow, you've learned something of value, something of substance that you can take back and tell your younger self. It is an indication. When you have something to say to your younger self, it is an indication that you have learned some of the valuable lessons that life is trying to teach. What would you tell your younger self? I want to share this with you, and I'm not going to keep you all a long time, because as we keep going, thank you. Yvonne said she would have told her younger self to slow down. Andy Cutler says, I wish I would have known this earlier in life. So then, you all, how do we gird up for the curveballs in life? Because we don't always get a chance to go back and speak to our younger selves, but we can talk to ourselves where we are. So how do we gird up for the curveballs in life and the moments that would smother us? How do we do it? How do we circumnavigate? How do we get around the overwhelming potholes that are along the roads and the streets and the highways in life? What can we do to avoid succumbing to the moments that would otherwise seize and ensnare and overtake us? What makeup, what inside of us, what constitution do we have that enables us to do life and make sure life doesn't do us? And then how do we as individuals, I wrote it in the preface, how do we as individuals who might not necessarily be surrounded by other people, how do we find the wherewithal to handle these overwhelming moments alone? Because many of us in this space called a pandemic, we are confined and restricted and isolated and quarantined, and we feel alone. So how do we handle these moments alone? Thank you. K Sharp said, I would tell my younger self to listen to your intuition. Yeah. Listen to the little voice inside. Being overwhelmed, how do we do it alone? Being overwhelmed is bad enough by itself. But to some degree, it's manageable as long as you have someone to help lift you. However, being overwhelmed when you are alone and or lonely, it increases the complexity and the intensity of those levels when life is already most vulnerable and when life is turned up. I want to just conclude our conversation by saying this. Thank you. Paula D said, I would tell my younger self, other people's opinions about you, they don't matter. Thank you, Paula. I wish we all could say that to our younger selves. Don't worry about what other folks say. Their opinions about you really don't matter. Annie says, Annie Cutler, learn how to tread and swim before we jump in the water. Yeah. I want to share this with you all, and then I got to get out of here. Somewhere along my life's journey, I've learned, and I need to just be me, I've learned that as omnipotent as God is, as providential as he may be, God doesn't sit afar off to control and manipulate mankind like this puppeteer. He doesn't do that. But we get free will, you all. We are empowered, and we get a chance to participate in life. And because we get a chance to participate in life, and because we have free will, with that in mind, when we are overwhelmed, the determination. So I want to kick off this conversation and conclude by saying the determination. K Sharp says, when things are overwhelming while alone, turn the noise down or turn it off. The determination, when we have free will, the determination of whether we overcome or succumb is dependent upon how we respond to that which overwhelms us. That is to say this: success or failure, our victory or our defeat, and to some degree, our life or death is partially dependent upon us because we've got free will and we have the ability to handle these things. We have the knowledge, the know-how, the wherewithal, the decisions as to how we're going to handle these. So because that is true, guess what? As providential as our Creator may be, and as our Creator really is, He gives us input into the outcome of our lives. We have input into the outcomes of our life. How we want it to turn out, we have the ability to influence that. Listen, we're going to keep talking about this book. We haven't even gotten to the first chapter because this book is divided into life lessons and all those sorts of things. So we're going to keep on talking about it. So make sure, if you don't have this book, go ahead and get it. We've just looked at the preface. That's all. We've just looked at the preface tonight, and we're going to jump into our first lesson next. We're going to go into our first lesson next time we meet. But you all, I'm telling you, know your threshold. Know how tall you can stand. Take a look at how deep the water might become. Sometimes it's not even worth forging a relationship with the water, with the thing that has the potential to take you under. Sometimes even after you step into it and you realize, this wasn't a good move, let me just go back and sit on the shore by myself, because at least I know I'm safe. And then not only that, as we have navigated and gone through life, say to yourself, listen, is there anything in my current situation is there anything that I can say to myself? Because if I can say something to myself, it means life has taught me a few things. I've learned a few lessons. MV says, go to whom you trust. I want to thank you all. Listen, you all. Tell people we're going to talk about real situations. We're going to talk about the intense moments of life. We're going to roll our sleeves up and we're going to get with it. So tell people you all need to come and let's talk to Cutler. It has been my pleasure to have this conversation with us this evening. Thank you so much for your feedback, for your comments. Let's do what we do, you all. Let's keep building community. Let's keep maintaining connectivity. Stay safe. Stay sane. Keep your heads up. Keep your hopes up. Join me right here Thursday. I'll be back. I want to hear ideas from you all. Listen, always feel free. Always feel free if you have any feedback, any comments, or anything that you want to send me, make sure that you do it. You can always send me an email to talk2cutler@gmail.com, because as this conversation builds up thoughts and it fosters ideas, I want to hear from you, because you may not necessarily think about it while we're in the chat. Email me. I promise you I'm reading the emails. All right. Thank you all so very much. You all make sure you have a good night. Stay safe. Good night. And be Hattie, K Sharp, Linda. Good night, MV. It's good to see all of you all. All right. Take care. I'll see you Thursday. Bye-bye.